Hey everyone, and welcome to the Let's Do More show. I'm Chris Rufflin, and I'm so glad you're here. This podcast is all about powerful personal stories of resilience, recovery, and overcoming life's toughest challenges. Here we dive deep into real life experiences on perseverance and personal growth. We'll explore what it takes to develop a positive mindset and how to transform adversity into strength. Along the way, I'll be sitting down with inspiring individuals, including celebrities in recovery, to help break the stigma of addiction, talk about mental health, and provide hope to those who need it most. Let's Do More. It's about finding hope in the dark moments, surviving the unsurvivable, and learning how to manifest the life you desire. We'll uncover insights and lessons that not only help us push through life's toughest times, but also turn those experiences into a force for good in our communities. So whether you're looking for motivation, healing, or just a reminder that you're not alone, you're in the right place. Let's do more. All right, welcome back to the Let's Do More show. I'm really excited to have this guest on today. I promise you, if you're picking up on the show, this is one that you do not want to miss. This is a super impactful story that certainly has helped change my life and many others, and I know it can change yours as well. So hopefully you'll tune in for the whole part of the show. My name is Chris Rufflin, and I'm the founder of the show. And as you know, this is kind of a recovery-based idea and show. However, at the same time, it is also about overcoming obstacles, right? And having people come on the show that have had something pretty major happen. A lot of us may not be able to get through, and they've gotten through it and came out better on the other side. And today is a true testament of that. I've got a friend on here by the name of Tanner Hopson. Tanner I met years and years ago in recovery and kind of had a connection and chatted a little bit, and we've stayed in touch, and it's been a little bit since we've spoke. But yeah, I'm really excited to have you on the show, man. I appreciate you coming on and being vulnerable and willing to kind of share your story in a way that's going to provide some hope for somebody else out there.
Thank you, Chris.
For sure.
But it hasn't felt like that long.
I know, isn't that crazy? That's the thing about your relationship in recovery. You literally can years later find somebody or run into them, and you've got that instant connection, which is awesome. And I know we've got a lot to talk about. For all the listeners, Tanner has been through some majorly traumatic events. And when I think of somebody who's overcame, in fact, when I first started the show, I made a list of some people, and you were on that list. And because when I think of somebody who's overcame an obstacle, you're one of the first people that pops in my head, honestly. And I don't want to share all your story. I'm going to let you do a lot of that stuff, but definitely stay tuned, like I said, because there's going to be some pretty impactful moments shared on here, as always. But I think this show is going to be even a little bit bigger than some of the ones that are on already. So Tanner, tell me a little bit about. Let's kind of start with going into like background, growing up, background. Let's start with before you became active in your addiction, and we'll talk about what led up to the accident and all that kind of stuff and what it looks like now. But share with us a little bit about how you grew up. I mean, was it a normal family life? How were things?
So classic American family. I mean, at church, they called us the Grady Bunch. My dad's name is Grady. They called us the Grady Bunch. I remember tucking in my shirt, had a cowlick sticking up. My dad would Copenhagen chew, lick his fingers, get my this right, and church every Sunday. And, not Boy Scouts, but it was campfire, the Christian version of those types of programs and stuff. It was just, I had an epic childhood, BMX then, sports, T-ball, all the good stuff.
Cool, man. So, what's crazy, I think a lot of times when I'm interviewing someone in recovery, and I know about myself too, for the most part, a lot of us actually had pretty normal childhoods, right? We had a family unit, and a lot of us were born and raised into certain churches and things like that. But at the end of the day, addiction really doesn't have any discrimination. Doesn't matter how you grew up, where you came from. Sometimes if you've grown up with more trauma, it can be leading into addictions, of course, and we know that to be true. But for the most part, this is something that can really hit anybody. So we had a normal life growing up. Fast forward a little bit with me to the first time that you had a substance, whether it was a drink or a drug. How old were you? And what happened, and how did you feel?
So I remember, my friend group in the little town, we were into anything we could get into. I mean, I remember a young mom having a box of wine in the fridge and, getting home, latchkey kid, getting home early from school, nobody home. Crank on the MTV, open the door, and, all the kids are home from school and all the parents are working, we're just hanging out. So, like having a little fun with that, just knowing it wasn't probably something I should be doing, but trying not to get caught, and just kind of even maybe controlled drinking a little bit at that age. If there is such
you mentioned something funny, MTV, that's back when they played music videos. A lot of our listeners may not know this, but MTV used to just be running music videos all day long.
Yeah.
right? And it was fairly new when Tanner and I were growing up. It was like a very exciting thing. And how old were you when this was happening? You were how old?
80s, 88, 89, 9 years old, 10 years old,
So
driving that.
19 years old,
Yeah. Well,
and you get into the parents' liquor cabinet basically and start dabbling a little bit.
yeah. So, just, my dad is a blue collar worker. So he's coming home, he's cracking buds and chewing Copenhagen, and, the friends, the parents are, there's weed there. We have access. We're finding stashes and stuff and getting into marijuana, and just, it was a very normal thing to do, and not, we're not getting caught. We're not causing trouble, but we're it's available. We're using it. We're doing
Yeah. Right. Right. So do you remember, I mean, I know that's a really young age, right? And everyone's story looks a little bit different. Personally, I didn't start, getting into my addiction until I was about 25, 26 years old. Growing up, for some reason, I repelled from it like crazy, even though it was around me. My dad was an alcoholic, and he was doing the same thing your dad was, except he was hiding it. And so typically when I was young and I'd see him with one of those coasters in his hand and a can in it, he would tell me it was a Coke, but of course I know now that it wasn't. And, I didn't realize this disease was hereditary either. The substance use disorder ran in families, and you had some higher chances of getting addicted if you had some things in your DNA with it. So when you were this young, do you remember what it felt like? Like if you were to describe what it felt like, your first use, first time you got drunk, first time you got high, what do you remember that being like?
So I have a profound experience I think with marijuana. It was like, yeah, whatever. My friends my best friends' brothers are older, and we're napping, and I wake up from a nap. They had been blowing it in my face, right? So I was a pretty disturbing experience, but I was a lot younger then, and I didn't know what was wrong with me. But after that, when I had tried it a few times and never had an effect, I remember the one time I did on a orange zigzag, big old, I fell to the ground, was hugging the earth, man. I thought I was going to fall off the earth, bro. It was like on a walk to the gas station, and I'm toking on that thing, and I just laid on the ground and the earth was spinning under me. It was very experience, man. That was with the marijuana. And the first drug experience I could remember was a gallon of Jack Daniels in the backyard, just the whole gallon. Me and my buddy just falling down on the grass, just innocent, just stumbling around till, pass out, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you remember what the emotional side of it looked for you? Like, did you feel like out of place? Did it make you feel comforted? Did it make you feel like you could do anything? What did that part look like?
Yeah. I mean, it's been a lot of liquid courage, I guess, is kind of how I describe it, just kind of like invincible. I've had a lot of active, they call it high functioning. I don't know. I still don't really understand that to detail, but just doing life inebriated and having needing that or wanting to have that, and then doing everything exceptionally.
Right.
Yeah.
Almost like it was like something that enhanced who you were, right?
Yeah. It's going to add to and make me better type of thing. And just learning how to do everything I did inebriated.
Yeah. Yeah, I can relate, man. The first time that my first struggle was actually weed as well. And so I can relate to that, but also just to the feelings. I remember instantly becoming social. All of a sudden I was funny. I fit in, right? And, for people who are listening, may not know addiction, or you have someone close to you struggling with it. It's one thing to note is that most of us don't, continue to use because of these fun times. It does create a chemical change in our body that's different than normal people. And what ends up happening is once we start, we can't stop. And I know for you, Tanner, I mean, your addiction lasted a while, right? So from 9 years old to what age did you start thinking about getting sober, and kind of start toying with the idea of maybe not using it all?
So to compress it all up between weed or alcohol, pills, powders, you name it, anywhere in there, alcohol was never one that was really something that I felt gripped by. It was the least of the others, At 39, here I am, full blown alcohol, and I can't not drink. I need alcohol. I mean, there have been times in my life it was pharmaceuticals and taking pills as prescribed and being controlled and having discipline, but always pushing the limits of, addictive behavior or unhealthy behavior, where I'm affecting my body and my chemistry and all these things. But at the end, alcohol finally came in from the backside, and it was something I could no longer leave. It was a requirement for me. And there was 3 years at the end, from 37, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. Those years were just 24/7 drinking.
Yeah. So during those years of active, alcoholism, and obviously it gets worse as we go. How did that affect or impact like your relationships and personal goals and things like that when you were kind of in those younger years, and even like the 20s and 30s, how did that impact you? The fact that that was what you need in your life and what you were, stuck with?
Well, I'll tell you, the natural course of it was I gravitated towards the people that were also doing those things. So my friends were at taverns and at bars. My friends were out at the nightclubs and the music. When I'd go to the ski hill and snowboard, I find myself sitting at the bar with the other drinkers and not skiing for 3/4 of the day, sitting up at the bar on the Summit House drinking. It was
Right.
my friend group became that world. And so it was kind of like, this is what we do.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, that's what it becomes, right? It's so instead of like developing healthy relationships and staying close to our family and those that care about us, that's what we tend to do. We tend to go out and find other people that are like-minded. And, I even have a little bit of a deeper theory on that, Tanner, because I'm a big believer in law of attraction and thoughts are things. And, you create what your reality is from inside here, and a lot of science has proven that now too. But there's also this deeper thing of like, really wanting to fit in. And so you end up attracting these types of people to you that you create your entire environment around, the party scene or being able to do these things with other people. And what it comes from for us as addicts or alcoholics is just this deep want to be accepted, to be seen, to be accepted, to be heard, to be part of. For people listening to this that don't struggle with this disease, one thing you should know is that we never felt like we fit in, right? Now, I'm sure that was true for you, Tanner, as a kid before you started. I always felt awkward, right? I always didn't quite feel like I fit in. I felt like I was kind of an outsider. And then once I started using a substance, just like you, it was like a superhuman, way to connect with other people, but most often the wrong people. So I get that. So we fast forward over, you've had all these years of using. I'm sure, we could get into it and talk more about what it looked like and how hard it was. For most of us, it looks the same. But for you, things took a turn in a pretty drastic way when you decided to get into recovery. And, a lot of people I've interviewed, they talk about several attempts at getting recovered. I talk about my own story with, multiple years sober and then relapsing and having to come back from that. But with you, it's really a different case. I mean, you had something completely tragic happen. And I want to, hopefully it's okay to bring this up and it doesn't trigger anything for you, but I want to have you share with everybody what that looked like that day. How deep had the disease gone? And what did this event look like that changed your life forever?
So, at the end with the progression of the disease and that 24/7 drinking, I mean, I prided myself on not being a blackout drinker. I mean, I can't say that, minus that that gallon of Jack Daniels, like there's been a lot. I was the guy that drove everybody home from the kegger out and the bonfire out in the desert, and I'm looking at the line trying to stay on the road. I got all my friends back here. I'm not going to kill my friends, right? Party over. But I started blacking out, I was wrecking my brand new trucks, my work trucks. I had some close calls there in that 24/7 drinking, those years of still working full time, running a paving crew, out paving driveways every day, plowing snow out in my truck, 15-hour shifts, whiskey drunk, plowing 3-4 foot of snow in the mountains of Montana by myself, doing these things in that place where at the end it's like I'm blacking out, I'm ditching work, I'm going to the tavern, I can't keep alcohol down anymore, right? I wake up in the morning and it won't stay down, right? So now it's like, what are you going to do there, right? Now you can't even get it in you anymore. So, my girlfriend, she got sick in December of 2019 with this pre-COVID, right? It turned out she had pneumonia, but I really liked this gal. And it was the first time in all those years I was like, I'm drinking too much. I can't even take care of her. She's not keeping food or fluids down. We're not at the taverns anymore because she's at home sick, like no work, nothing. I'm trying to take care of her. I'm lightening up on my drink. We get her well in that month and go on a vacation to Palm Desert for her birthday. And I hadn't been drinking. I'm feeling pretty good about myself as far as lightening up on my drinking and stuff. And we do a 5-day trip over Christmas at my house in Dewey, Arizona. I drink every bit of alcohol in the house and have a blackout. And that whole month I hadn't been drinking and I got really, really drunk and passed and had that blackout experience. Went on the trip and we're in Palm Desert for some days and we're going to come home and I can't even get in the car to drive home because I'm in fear for my life. I'm having some fever for a couple nights. I'm going to the chiropractor, getting my back adjusted in pain, going to the urgent care. He's telling me, swab this, pee sample that, checking my prostate, doing all this stuff. He's like, I don't know what's wrong with you, but you can go to the ER. I'm like, I'm going to the ER, get to the ER. And within hours, I'm fully intubated on life support in a medically induced coma, dying. And they're like, what the heck is going on with this guy, So that's how fast it came on And so now here I am. My parents are getting called to fly in and say their goodbyes. They're hanging a do not resuscitate order on my toe. He's too weak. He's too fragile. If we try and revive him, it could kill him. My dad's an EMT, a paramedic. He's like, yeah, we're not going to try and save him. And everyone's saying their goodbyes to me.
And prior to that, I know we've talked at length on a personal level. I mean, you had all kinds of car accidents, right? You had drove a truck into a ditch. I mean, a lot of our stories look like that, where we've had multiple reasons and things to get sober. And I can tell you for myself, even being on life support and having a near-death experience wasn't actually enough for me. Yours went a little bit deeper, and you actually have a reminder on a daily basis, which I also do now with my foot that was severely injured. I get this gift of being able to wake up every day and really remember what it was like because of the things that have happened to us. So you're in the hospital, you're on life support. One question I want to ask you, because a lot of my listeners are into this, and I talk a lot about, this near-death experience I had. Do you remember anything from being on, life support? Do you remember any dreams, visions, anything that you felt or heard from the other side, or did you have any of that?
So you brought it up. I mean, I'm 20 years old with my buddies riding my motorcycle over the Bradshaw Mountains outside of Prescott there. And I hit a tree at 70 miles an hour, wheelie, and going past my buddy had been splashing me in puddles, and I see a puddle. I'm sober. I'm 20 years old. I'm ditching church. It's a Sunday. We're riding 8 hours over the top of this mountain. I hit a tree at 70 miles an hour at 25 feet up there, snapped my pelvis off, ripped my whole lower body apart. And they dragged me up the hill, and I'm laying on the ground looking up at the sky yelling, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. Give me a cigarette. I'm going to die. And the freak on their phone.
Right, yeah.
The phone calling the guys to come up save me. I'm laying on the ground screaming, I'm going to die. Convinced. I'm in pain. I swear the whole sky fell on me like a film and fell over my body. And I immediately had a calm come over me and a peace come over me, that everything was going to be okay. And you didn't hear a peep out of me from that point. I laid there, got my shit together, took some deep breaths, and believed God was going to bring me through that time. And I thought I was never going to walk again. I have 11 titanium pins in my pelvis from that. I was convinced I could very well be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life at 20 years old. So fast forward to
39, right?
Waking up 3 days in a coma. I'm telling you what, I was in hell. I mean, I'm having Mr. Crowley, in my head, like my acid trip from when I was a kid. I'm reliving all this stuff. I'm like literally in hell. I can't close my eyes. I can't drink water. I can't eat food. All I hear is voices. Everyone's talking. It's full on psychosis. Everyone's talking about me. My girlfriend is in the other room and she's going to leave me. And it was just like 7 days of that. They're like, defecating myself every 20 minutes, every 10 minutes. Oh, you hear the nurses over there. Hey, it's your turn. Talk about humiliation and feeling bad about even alive anymore, man. I was like pulverized down to a peak. I didn't know what to think about anything other than, wow, there's people in here that are going to take care of me. There's people in here that want to save me. I mean, I have good nurses that changed my life forever because they really did care.
Yeah. And you find that there are some amazing nurses out there. My wife is a nurse, and she's definitely one of those ones that goes the extra mile for her patients. One question around that. So obviously you go to the hospital, they're testing your alcohol level and stuff. They know that you're way inebriated. Do you feel like you got treated differently by some of the medical staff because you were an addict alcoholic and they knew what was going on?
Mr. Hopson, it says on here, you drink. How much do you drink? I looked at him, I said, how much can a person drink? If they tried their hardest, that's how much I drank. Like, wait, are you a needle user? And no. And that's true. I'm not. Like, there was some rumors that came up, like, because it was Streptococcus A they found. They bring me out of the coma, and I'm filing my unemployment as a snowplower in Montana, thinking I better get my girlfriend some money or she's going to leave me, and I need to support her so she can be there for me after just spending all this time with her and thinking she's going to die on me. I mean, it was a traumatic couple months. And here I am now laying there. I'm the sick one. And they're like, well, he's not brain dead. And they're just completely blown away that I'm alive. I have 40 pounds of fluids on me. My arms are turning black. My legs are turning black. My joints are turning black. They're like, they don't know if I'm going to make it for the next hour.
I mean, you see your body's full on going into sepsis at this point.
Toxic shock, septic shock. And then 7 days, 3 days in the coma, they pull me out. And then I'm in there for 4 more days. And they send me to San Diego to the burn unit because now I have to be treated for all this disseminated intravascular coagulation. It's the beginning of limb loss, gangrene, dead, neurosis.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So at that point, amputations, whatever, it's not, I'm going to a burn unit and they're going to treat all these wounds, surface wounds, right?
Right. Yeah.
Oh, I get there, I ride in an ambulance, bouncing around, my skin's falling off, I'm like, I'm in hell. Like, I'm just trying to hang on. I'm like, you're not going to come back, and no one's there to hold you or make sure you feel safe. Like, you're just along for the ride. You're helpless at this point.
Yeah. And even if they were, I mean, you're already so far into that dark space. I mean, and again, you're one of those people who have been through, some of the most drastic things and drastic stories I've heard with this disease. Everybody has their own story, of course, but so you get to this burn unit, and at this point, you're still 100% intact. They're trying to figure out and assess what to do. What ends up happening? Were there any of those nurses you mentioned that changed your life? Was there anything you remember about them, the way they treated you or what they said? Because I do hope that this part of our show here today gets out to some first responders. Part of what I love to do is change the stigma about addiction. It is not a moral failing. It is not always a choice for us. Once we're sober and we have some tools, it might be a choice. But for the most part, when we're active in our addictions with substance use disorder, which is a disease, we don't have full control over our choices and what we do until we can get rid of the substance. That does impact the way we're treated, right? I remember being on life support and I was kicked out a day or two early. My family wasn't even called. They put me in an Uber and sent me home. I don't remember how I got home, kind of roughly. It came back to me a few days later and I'm laying in my bed just going, what the hell just happened? And, so what were some things that the medical staff did that did change your life? You mentioned a couple nurses specifically.
I mean, from the beginning, the fact was it was so much care with the wounds, 3 times a day. I mean, these nurses and these people and the ultrasounds and the blood clots, and just, there was someone on me 20 hours of the day. I mean, first I'll say I've lived my life in the delusion that I've been in control of myself and have things already and figured out. Okay. So
right.
Once in my life, even when I was on that hill with a broken hip, I'm like, I got this. Thank you, God.
Even when you're 20 with a broken hip and dying, I got this.
Oh my, like,
relatable.
These nurses are like, I could tell the ones that you're just another number. Oh, you're a number and you're an addict. Oh, you're a homeless addict.
Right.
Further down you go, like, how much did you drink? Are you a needle user? Like, all these things. Is like, I realized real quick that if I was the best patient they'd ever had, and if they saw my will to survive and want to be the best for them so that they could do their job, I mean, I was able to get the best out of my care because I just decided once and for all that I was going to stop trying to act like I knew what was best for me. I'm going to listen. I'm going to do what they tell me. I'm going to endure the discomfort of all these crazy, stupid things. I mean, I remember the ENT guys came up one time. They're shoving it down my throat and I'm trying to pull some stuff out of my head, and I'm about ready to just deck the guy. And I'm hanging on thinking this is what they got to do for me to help me. It's like, I don't get this guy away from me. I got to let these people do these things to me to get me well. I mean, at that point, it seemed like any of them would want to meet you as a person and just do the best they could for you. They would have good days and they would have bad days. And it was just kind of like, there was no bullshit in there, It's a very traumatic place to be in a long-term situation, in an ICU, a burn ICU. It's a war zone. And them people have the ability to be calm and be able to prioritize. And I learned a lot about staying out of that fight or flight, like learning how being calm is almost a requirement to getting through it. And the second you let that panic and stuff in, you're no longer helping yourself and you're shutting down. So you want to talk about some heroes, I
mean, yeah, in every way, Tanner, you basically had this giant breakdown as a man. I mean, broken down to absolutely nothing and having to be kind of reconstructed back up, not only physically, emotionally, mentally, all this stuff. And we all have a moment like that in recovery where, some groups call it a rock bottom. Some people, call it other things. But at the end of the day, there's some desperation that comes with wanting to get sober. So tell us real quick what ends up happening. So you're in the burn unit, what decisions were made and where did that end up for you?
So, it's a teaching hospital. They're taking my case. I have no insurance, right? They're taking this middle-aged white guy that's maybe a an alcoholic drug addict, but he's a working guy, he's not a homeless guy, right? So I'm in California. They have a really vast medical insurance. They're treat people like people, even the rough ones. I mean, if you're going to go anywhere in the US, California's pretty with it on compassion to people. But I lost my train of thought there.
Well, just with where they ended up, what decision
they're coming in and saying with the PT, they're coming and saying, you got to get up, you got to walk, we got to get you up, you're going to get pneumonia. And I'm sitting there, I'm looking at my foot trying to bend at the ankle, and I'm going, I have a lot of willpower and I'm not afraid of pain, and I cannot bend my foot. They're standing me up. And the next day they come in, and I'm like thinking ahead, I'm like, I don't see myself progressing. And in my mind, I'm in denial that my limb, anything's wrong with my foot, right? They're coming in and checking my foot for a pulse with a little meter, looking for a pulse, looking for blood flow. And I'm saying, oh, it's right there. You can hear it. And all the different students are coming in. They want to see this guy with his foot dying, right? And in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, it's fine. They just want to see that, yeah, my foot's getting blood. Everything's good. It turns white. It swells up. It turns black and purple. And then it just, from that point, they're like talking about amputation below the knee. And I'm getting all my girlfriend's doing all this research, and we're coming very versed in the understanding of amputees. We're like, we know a knee's better than no knee. And they take me at the feet, and I lay there with no feet for some time. And they're like, we want to kind of inspect and get up in there. And then finally they came in and said, hey, if we don't take your legs off, and we don't know if it'll be above the knee, they could kill you. And I looked at them and said, why aren't they gone yet? Take my legs off right now. I'm not going to die in here like this. Like, why haven't you taken them off yet? I don't know what was going on behind closed doors, but it's a big deal to be getting amputations. You could die from a lot of liability for the doctors and the surgeons, everybody involved. So they're trying to be thorough. And in the meantime, here I have fever every night, going into these crazy near-death experiences every single night, ice packs and heart rate at 200 and something, blood pressure, it's like every single day. So it came around finally where I woke up with one of my legs amputated above the knee. And to be honest with you, I was happy because I knew I was one step closer to getting that infection and that dead stuff off of me. And at that point in time, other than my kids and how I was going to deal with telling them, I really was feeling like, Tanner, it's about time you learn how to put yourself first. And here's just going to be this long game of what are you going to make? What are you going to do with this situation? How are you going to get out of it? And how are you going to not be miserable in your life? And now, by the way, you're an amputee with no legs. If you couldn't do it before, you sure as hell got all the reason to not do it now. What are you going to do about it? It was just like, I knew I grew up Christian and Jesus and all the good teachers and all the good people in my life and all the wrong things I've done and the times I've not gotten in trouble when I knew I probably could have gotten in trouble. Like, I know how to do the right thing. I'm just pissed off at a world that's full of hypocrisy, And now I'm just going to take my eyes off everyone else and be like, all right, how about you get your shit straight?
I think that's an amazing, point to just really like second in on. I mean, number one, I'm interested to hear about what you think it was that made you go to, I know several people are amputees, and you all have a very similar thread, which is when that decision came down and you were told you may lose a limb, it was like, okay, I accept it, take it, let's go, and let's move forward. And I know there's struggle in there too, and depressed moments, all those things that come with that, and all the pain, of course, on top of it, physically and emotionally. But I think it's courageous, man, to hear that that's how you thought of this, right? I mean, this is all your alcohol drinking leading up to this event anyways. I mean, it's basically caused by that, right?
So,
and a lot of people,
and I do try and hone in on that. It's really hard to, like if I had a needle user, it would have been very easy. People say, oh yeah, sure. His blood got infected, right? Well, the bottom line is you're drinking to that level. Your immune system is dust. I mean, sure.
Right.
And everybody's like immune system health, blah, blah, blah. It's like, you're an alcoholic. Your immune system's compromised. You're a drug addict. You're eating processed foods all day long. You're doing all this shit. You're not sleeping right. Come on. Like immune system deficiency comes with all kinds of bad lifestyle, lifestyle choices that are not healthy. So yeah, it was quitting drinking. And then however had it been since, like I nicked my finger. I mean, I've heard of people getting strep A blood infection from camping and getting a burn on a cast iron skillet. And the guy goes home and he goes on his thumb. And next thing you know, he's a quadruple amputee from strep A. So you can get strep A anywhere it could get in, and then your immune system doesn't get it. So yeah,
Yeah, man. I mean, I think your attitude towards this, and that's the thing about you, Tanner, and for people listening, if you're going through some type of a struggle, when I listen to Tanner's story, and we've talked several times and heard other parts of it, like it's almost impossible to really have a bad day and have a problem, and I think that's a gift that you give to people, Tanner. As tragic as this was, it's a reminder for all of us that our problems are so minuscule to some of the things people have to go through, right? And I'm just glad that you made it through it, and you're here sharing your story with people, because it's going to inspire a lot of people. And I think for you and I both, when we come back from some of these horrible experiences and being dead, you kind of are left with a choice of, am I going to be bitter about this, or am I going to be better? And being better for me, and I know it's the same for you, also meant that I needed to share that story and help other people through their challenges. But it's amazing to me that again, this thread with a lot of amputees is that the acceptance of what happened is right there pretty quickly. And then it's a matter of, okay, let's move forward. What do we got to do? So what did recovery look like? Obviously you can't drink anymore, so you're pretty much cold turkey stopping.
yeah.
They're telling you if you drink, you're dead. And so you got to be sober. You've never been sober in most of your life, from 9 to 39. That's a long time. So what were your fears about being sober, or any misconceptions you had about recovery in the first place?
I mean, I'm sober 5 years now, 5.5 years coming up on, and I have situations every single day where I want to not face this moment that I'm in. I'm uncomfortable. I mean, earlier on, it was like, I'm going to have a 24/7 discomfort and new experiences coming at me, and not be able to run literally, but you know what I mean. And I'm going to have to take it. So I went through some very crazy anxiety, and I was trying to just stamp it and say, figure out, every curve, every ramp, every car, every transfer driving. I'm trying to figure out all this stuff in my head. And finally, for the first time in my life, I said, Tanner, why don't you take some faith in yourself? Look at how good you've done, all the great things you've done. How about you'll just figure it out when it happens? And until then, it's an imagination, and you don't even know if it's going to happen or not. And just trust yourself. You'll have what you need in the moment to make the right decision, and maybe even come up with something new, and maybe fail. See, that was not an option for me. I'm a perfectionist, right? I don't fail. So it was just this whole thing of swallowing that down and saying, I can fail. No one's ever, what are they going to do? I got no legs. What do you think happens? That it was just like that whole person of me was cut off with my legs. It wasn't just like amputating flesh and
Right. Death of the old and this new reborn.
my ego and all these things that I hid behind and leveraged to be of and to have substance, all that external and material and fancy cars and the fancy life. It was just like, I could be invisible to the world now. No one's asking me for help.
Yeah.
I don't have to help.
Yeah. Kind of a crazy realization, right? I mean,
for me to just get into myself for once.
Yeah, something to think about. And I think your perception, right? I talk about it a lot. Perception is such a key thing. It's not about why did something happen to us. It's what can I learn from what's happening? And I think if we keep that train of thought, not only does our recovery in those moments go better with our attitude being better. I'm not saying this is easy. Sometimes it takes a lot of practice. We have days that are bad and things that we've gone through. Every person on this planet has things they've gone through that are difficult and hard to get through. But the same principle that you applied right there with losing both your legs can be applied to almost anything, which is what's your perception on the situation, right? And you shifted that from this whole, and I think it's also this great ego death that you had, as you just mentioned there. It was like out with the old person, legs are gone, and in with the new. And at that point, you didn't really have a choice to keep an ego. It had to be gone. And I, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's probably what led to such a strong recovery and some of the cool things you've done. And we'll get into that. So what's been the hardest part of recovery? I mean, let's fast forward a little bit. So you get out of the hospital, you're W amputee now. Now you got to go on this road of learning how to walk again, learning how to wear prosthetics. And I know I want to talk about some of the cool things you've done as well. You're skiing and some of those things too that are virtually impossible to do at that level for anybody with two full legs. You're out there doing that stuff. So what did it look like? And what do you think the hardest part of that recovery process was for you?
Some of the things that stick out. I mean, like I said, I'm an asphalt layer. Hard things are kind of like appealing. I acquired a taste for hard things. So that was something that I had in my already established is like, resilience, or just like enduring pain, right, and enduring like suffering, like physical pain, pushing through, like, as long as it wasn't an injury, I keep going. So any pain I experience, as long as I'm not doing injury to myself, I'm not harming, I'm being true to myself. Pain is just the pain. it's something that needs to be endured, because if I don't go through it, that the pain was very extreme. The nerve pain, the phantom pains I still get. I'm just pain free with these new sockets here as of recently. It's taken me 13 pairs, over 130 versions to get that right. My flaps and my skin and how they did the bone and stuff. I have a good stump and a really nasty stump. And so pain, I don't like pain. I'll deal with it when I have to, but I got a kink in my back right now for no reason, and it annoys me. And I try and do things to prevent myself long-term from having injuries and pain. And I don't like pain, it just like back in the day, I'd pop a pill. I would crack a beer.
Right.
Like I could fix pain, but how do you do it sober?
And how do you do it sober? What did you do that, I mean, you had to, you didn't have a choice.
Right.
Some of us get into recovery because we have a spouse telling us they're going to leave if we don't, or we go to jail and it's something the judges told us to do. Your situation was literally a life circumstance, right? And it was life or death for you. All of a sudden you had that realization. You didn't have to grow into it. For me, I had to really grow into that idea that if I continue to use it, it was going to be the death of me. And it did become the death of me a couple of times. But what was it that got you through that pain? Like, what are some of the things you did in those super hard moments to just not want to off yourself or go back to using?
So I did have some medication and pain stuff that I did for some time through the early years and stuff that was definitely not in a unprescribed way, and pain management. I've had pain management people and stuff, because it's, using the sockets and being in them and trying to function again. It's kind of like a dance with that. Like, when is it time to move on? And when is it becoming unhealthy? I had a nurse one time come in, and this was in the hospital. Now, mind you, in San Diego, they didn't pump me full of opiates, They have kind of a newer, different, how we're after the opioid epidemic here. They wouldn't give me more than 15 milligrams at a time. When I broke my pelvis back in 2000, they pumped me full of Dilaudid, morphine, everything they could give me on the time interval was in my system at 20 years old. That's where I got my desensitization to opiates at that from that injury, and how that all came about to be part of my life. But she came in to me and she said, "Tanner, have you ever used breathing and meditation for pain?" And I'm like,
I got two legs on it. Of course I haven't thought of that, right?
He's like, "Go to your happy place. Just go somewhere that's not here and you'll be fine." And I did it, and I know you could do it. And I mean, it was a necessity thing. It's like, I have to try this with all of my might and take control and put my mind away from this, knowing it's still there, and create an existence and experience outside of this. And I did it. I mean, I literally did it, and I had to do it because they won't give you no more medicine. I'm not going to get out of this hospital and be drinking anymore. I mean, I left all that. I'm done. I'm not going to be rolling around in a wheelchair with a pocket full of pills and a bottle of vodka in my backpack with people slap me on the back saying how great I'm doing just for getting up in the morning. I mean, Diego, the vets are out there. Everybody's rolling around. I'm out in my chair and moving around and stuff, and you see them out there laying down and beaten up and in their scrubs and get kicked out of the hospital. I spent time living on the campus in San Diego at that burn unit for 3 years. I lived in the campus there around all these people. And it's very, very in your face of like what these lifestyles are like when you do that with your life, And
you're surrounded by it.
Yeah, it was intense.
And I think there's two ways to look at that, right? You could have looked at it and said, I'm going to give in and do this. These people are comfortable, at least. They don't have to think about this. And something inside of you obviously made you choose to fight back in a healthy way and find other ways that work. So meditation, breathing, those can be huge for anything that we're going through in life. Once you got kind of back and you started being able to do some things, what were some of the discoveries you made with like hobbies or passions that you feel like had replaced the role in addiction? Because a big part of it for all of us is we have to find something to fill this hole of what we feel with drugs, alcohol, sex, shopping addictions, food addictions. I mean, the list goes on and on. We also share a similar thing, which is we can't just take that substance away and not replace it with something. But I know you've done some really cool things. I want you to speak to those for a minute here. Not only to give people hope of what they can do, even being a double amputee, it ought to give some people some light, I think, onto how small the problems are and that you can all do something about it. But tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah. So you had mentioned about amputees that choose one way of mindset. And then I've experienced a lot of amputees. People have come to me and asked me to help because of the way that I've chose to think about it. So there's just as many people that, they may be a below knee, and it's like, that's not a measure. It's his life. It's his limb. It's his experience. Like he's sitting at home doing nothing with his life for 5 years. Right. And so you hear both sides of the story, but I mean, rather than sit in that dark season, and they say in the steps of healing, there's the grievance and the mourning, the different steps. I can't recite them all right now. I felt like I was going to visit that later. I just started getting busy with, like, I said to myself, I'm not going to say no, which to me, I'm a good backhoe operator, excavator operator. I've perfected things and mastered things, but if I can't do it in 5 minutes, like I just want it now. I don't sit there like, I'm going to go ski on a sit ski at 70 miles an hour down a hill, curving around gates with control, sober, and grind every day and try and go to the Paralympics. I did that. I'm not training right now. This season and last season, I took a break to be with my business and my daughters, but I want to go back to it. But I went surfing out on the water, sitting on the surfboard, wake surfing, rock climbing. I've got a mountain bike that's a literal, electric motor on it. And you can go downhill this thing and rip around on it. I just basically started getting into the adaptive world. And it's a lot of people that just want to live and stop focusing on all the stress and bullcrap. It's like, hey, I'm missing my life is right in front of me, let's go, And so I spent 4 years just doing that.
I think everybody can take a lesson from that comment you made there. That's brilliant. This is my life and it's just passing me by. And whether your trauma or your traumatic event looks like depression or anxiety or some major life event or things outside of your control, that's something we can all adapt. We can all adopt, right? We only have so many summers. I have a good friend of mine, and him and his wife completely turned around their lives and everything. He's been on the show, and she asked him one day, she said, how many summers do you think we have left? From that point, it really changed their perspective on life, because a lot of us go through like zombies, and we don't really think about these things, but we don't have an unlimited amount of time here on this planet. And I want to also just real quick pause, because I think I love how humble you are. But I'm telling you, folks, I have seen his skiing videos. I believe I saw a surfing one as well. And maybe what I'll do is get a little clip from you, Tanner. We'll put it into the show that's on YouTube for people to see. But he didn't just figure out how to cross country ski or go surfing in a lake. He was doing extremely athletic things that most people with two legs cannot do. And I want to make sure we give you the credit there, because I think it's amazing. I mean, you're on the Paralympics team. When we first met, you were up training in Park City and living up on the campus there with all the other skiers and keeping up. Not only keeping up, but I mean, you were good. You're good at this stuff, right? Even without the legs.
Yeah. Shout out to National Ability Center, Park City, Utah. 26 years they've been going at it. Yeah, I mean, if you need to know anything about skiing, the ski bends, right? In the bucket, you have a shock under you like a motorcycle.
Yeah.
So you're compressing the shock and bending the ski, and it's just slingshot you, and then throwing you into the off. You're into the next, and you're just like 60 mile an hour. And I mean, I got a concussion last January when I was out training, and I kind of stepped away to get back at home had some family matters and some business I needed to do. And I left with the concussion, and I'm like, yeah, that's it. It happens, but we got the helmets and gear, and we're hitting gates across the collarbones and stuff. It's gnarly, dude.
It is gnarly. I remember the first time you showed me a video, I will never get the image out of my head. I remember coming home and tell my wife, and I was telling her today that I have you on the show, but I can't get it out of my head. I'm sitting there watching this going, it doesn't even look real, because I would imagine it is so difficult, but you can also tell it's something you enjoy and you have passion for. So, it's really cool to be able to see you do those things. And that's one of the big reasons I want to have you on the show, is just to express that. I think I will have you send me a little video, and we'll kind of clip it in somewhere at this point or at the end. But so at this point, I mean, how has your perspective on yourself and your life changed since being in recovery? You've been sober 5 years. Obviously, you're not the type of guy that gets down on yourself and woe is me and plays a victim mentality. From what I can see, you come out on the other side of things. But you tell me, how's your perspective changed?
Well, I'm going to come at a kind of a weird angle from here, because I'm somewhere today with my path and my sobriety and my purpose in my life. Like, basically, I own an asphalt laying company and an excavation company. I have this big life, and with my business, been 30 years in the business stuff. It's not my identity today. My purpose is I have this maintaining this high vibration and this divine path, this sacred path, or whatever. I've been an empath all my life. I'm going to leave the world behind if I do everything right. I can't leave my friends. I grew up on the streets of Prescott Valley, in the dirt. I grew up, my neighbors, they're all alcoholics, and their husbands are beating their wives, and my friends are getting beaten. I got disciplined firmly as a child, but I didn't have that kind of abuse, say, like that. But I mean, I experienced some of that. I'm an empath, I can leave my people. Then pretty soon it's an excuse to do what they're doing. Well, you're no different than them. You get all the same consequences. So, for once in my life, I'm like, I'm not leaving anybody behind. I'm leading people where if I'm looking for leaders, looking for examples I want to follow in recovery or on the ski hill or on social media, on podcasts, whatever, like I'm bringing it back or I'm trying to be something I didn't have an example to be. Like it's what I have to do now to have a full life and see what there is for me, because I came into this life with a lot of discernment, a lot of compassion for people. And I didn't go that route where I want to control or step on people. And like, I'm not trying to elevate myself. I don't feel like I need a pedestal. I'm walking shoulder to shoulder with my friends, but
Yeah,
I'm
you've always been
being
humble about it.
intentional and I'm not leaving. Like, I'm like, come on. All right. If no one else is going to do it, I'll do it. And then you're like, well, I'm still
Yeah.
not doing it. I'm an imposter. It's like, I'm not an imposter anymore. I'm like, I'm doing it. And
I love what you said there real quick, Tanner. I hope everybody just heard this and you've listened to the show long enough to catch this, and there'll be more nuggets to pull out. You just said something effective. I had to become the person. I never had an example of how did you say that? I had to become the person that,
I have a kid right now, 8 years old, to live with. I'm trying to show him and be an example. And it's very, very, very intimate because I'm at an advanced level, 5 years sober. I've had a really working man's life. I've made money. I've done a lot of things. And it's like, I know why my dad didn't do it for me, because it's freaking hard. And but if you don't do it, you could say this and do something else. But a lot of times I'm talking, I just need to shut up because I need to focus on what I'm doing. So now I'm more
focus on the work and then moving forward. Yeah. I think what it was you said is you said I had to be someone I didn't have an example of being.
Yeah.
So and that's the cool thing that we get an opportunity, folks, if you have an obstacle you overcome that's life challenging like this, you can literally, with the same type of attitude that Tanner has, you can change your family tree. You can change your family dynamics, right? Now you're teaching your son how to go out and do these things that you had to learn the hard lessons on. And I think that's commendable. And it's like the stuff happening in your family tree, it stops here, right? Stops with me, and I'm going to go out and do and not just say. If you could speak to your past self, what would you say? To the one that was drinking and drugging and
you thought you always came out smelling like a rose, and you have in your life, but you almost didn't this time. And if you want to be true with yourself, you didn't, because you ain't got no legs no more, bro. And now you look at everybody else with legs going, man, if I had this mindset, this attitude, or if I start messing around with legs, like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think I'm going to do any less without legs, because it's what's coming, my mindset, and other people have legs that can do things that with their legs, like just saying like, hey, at some point you don't come out the other side. Or maybe you're the kind of amputee where that's just a deal breaker for you. And you say, I'm going to live on the streets of San Diego and drink vodka and do pills and wait for my social security to come in every month. And this is as good as my life is going to get. And look, I have friends out here with me, and this is just how our life is supposed to be. This is as good as it's going to get. And I just, some point, something could happen that you just can't deal with. I mean, I think about the paralyzed people. I hang out with them a lot. It makes my stomach, because I still have my core and I can do all this stuff. They're out there skiing and shit that I skiing faster than me. And I mean, they have the attitudes and the stuff, similar to me, but like, I still have things that I don't want to. I want to say that I have what it takes to deal with more tragedy in my life. Living my life like everything I'm doing, God, my higher power, like bless me, protect me. I don't invite tragedy into my life. I don't invite suffering into my life, because it's going to happen anyway without me, if I'm doing everything perfect.
You don't have to help it, right? And I think that's your recovery and your journey and some of the cool things you've done just in a short 5 years. You are light years ahead of a lot of other people. And I'm telling you, it's because of the attitude, the mindset. You're not talking negative to yourself all the time. You had already made that decision that, hey, my life is changing right now. It's time to make the best of it. And you never really look back. And that's why you've been able to do so much more. And you're right. We don't have to help it be hard. Life can be very hard and difficult, and things are going to pop up. In my experience, the more we think about those things and how difficult they're going to be, the more we actually create those situations in our life, right? So another question I have for you, if you were able to talk to somebody who's currently struggling with addiction of some type, and maybe they're afraid to seek help, what advice would you give somebody like that to become free from what they're trapped in?
So I have this thing going where if I had a picture of what I could take a syringe full of what I have and put it in somebody and just walk away and be like, okay, they're good now, I want to understand how to articulate the complex solution, or however I've done this in me. And I don't think it's possible. I don't think it's supposed to be that way. It's going to be through all these interactions, organic relationships in life. And my heart finally broke from myself. I said, I love people so much. I say I love them in my life. I treat myself like shit. I can't show up for them. You're a liar. You're a hypocrite. If you love them, you'll secure your life and your future for them, so they always have you. So dummy, you're doing right there don't make sense. You're a hypocrite. So it's like, I finally said, all right, you know what? I'm going to have compassion for myself. And my heart broke for myself and what I'd done to myself. And I'm like, okay, well, they say you can't give away what you don't have. All these things. It's like, I don't take on offense and insult. I don't have these anger and rage. I've rooted this stuff out to where I get to have this life now as an empath, where it's like, people don't disrespect me, and I extend dignity and honor to them that they can't even give to themselves. And it's like, if I can help you, it's like,
I love that.
Who do you love? I love my mom. Do you love your mom? Really? Your mom loves you. If you don't love yourself, you're not loving your mom. Like they say, we're one, unity, all this stuff. It's like, it's all this overlap. It's like so hard.
How crazy. I remember us talking about that. That was a weird flashback. Sorry to cut you off, but yeah, I remember us talking about how important it is to love yourself, because you really can't accept love or give love if you haven't. And I think it's amazing, Tanner, again, kudos to you that you took this opportunity. You took this tragedy as an opportunity and decided to use it as a way to fuel your authentic self. I don't know anybody who's more authentic, honestly. And what you see is what you get. And, for those of you who are listening, Tanner has a lot of stuff on social media. You can go and watch his videos and some of the things he says and his views and stuff. There's just no fear anymore. I think when you've had to face one of your worst fears, I know it's true for me with my near-death experience, that all the other fears you have seem to become so minuscule. And now it's almost like God gave us this chance to step through fear in a kind of a forced way. But thank God, because I don't think I could have done it on my own. Yeah. So I appreciate that advice. So as far as mindset goes, and I know we're coming up to our hour mark here, but I want to get a couple other insights from you. Do you think that recovery and being sober in this event, has it given you a unique perspective or strength that you didn't have before?
Well, I mean, so let's pretend I'm laying there getting rolled over for a wound change, and I'm getting ready. I'm preparing for this pain that I'm going to endure. The shots they give you don't do shit. And I'm like, I don't have a choice but to experience this. I can't run. I can't go nowhere. This is from whatever the feeling is it is like, as bad as it is, I'm going to have to come out the other side of it. We have power in our lives, like the way we grew up. We can alter our state and soothe and do all these things whenever we want, as much as we want. What flavor do we want?
Always on the table.
It's all the shit. Well, I have the ability now to sit and shut my mouth and not just let my emotion take me to a place of chaos and just be like, okay, what's on the other side of this? Because I'm going to get through it. And then when I'm in the middle of these tormenting moments, because let me be honest, if anybody could have done this thing the way I did it with this exact thing, whatever, coming from where they did it, I think I've done the best. I mean, I really have do it perfect, because I'm just crazy like that. I'm extreme like that. And I'm like, I got too many opportunities to get right or, make mistakes. But like, eventually I won the prosthetic thing. I walk 15,000 steps a day on these things if I want to, But
yeah, most people don't do a couple thousand. It's so impressive.
But I've had moments, weeks, months where I'm just not right. I wake up and I'm just like, whether it's thinking about my family or the business or things, I'm like, how is this going to work out? Like life on life's terms happen, all these things that will change the whole course of everything. One little thing happens and this element changes. Like I'm trying to figure all this stuff out when all I need to do is just chill and mind to myself and enjoy the moment. They say smell the roses. Like I never could do that. I want to meddle in everything because I'm my God. I'm God.
Right.
Let me show you how I am God today in my life. And I don't do that anymore. And
hard to be present if you think you're the one, Yeah. Well, lastly, one other big question I want to ask you, because I know you're working on some pretty cool things, and our conversation the other day, a couple of things stuck out to me. Just you and I both are very similar in the fact that today we believe in a higher power we choose to call God, and I rely upon that daily to get my strength. I know you do as well. And so what do you think now that you're on this path? I mean, you're kind of newer into sobriety, but for anybody who has had an addiction, staying sober for a day is a huge milestone. I don't want to make light of that, but 5 years is a good chunk and things are moving forward. I mean, what are you looking to do forward in your future? And what are you looking to do now that you've got all this knowledge and sobriety and You've overcame so many hard things. What's next?
So I do reel it in when I'm getting, like, this podcast with you today is a blessing to me, because I've been trying to wait for things to kind of present, that way I know I'm not trying to,
Right.
I mean, I have a livelihood, I have a business and a paving company, and I have a lot of great things going on with that. And so I do have some of that focus going on, but I want to hang out with a bunch of other people that are pushing themselves to the degree I am, and see all this cool stuff we can do together, and watch each other just be kings and queens and just be amazing. You talk about childhood, you face a point where you're either going to get rejected and not accepted, or you're going to be your true self. And at a very young age, we learn how to choose to put on a mask and choose acceptance over that. Over being our true self. Here I am at 40 years old, and I don't care if everyone likes me or not. That's not me. I want everybody to like me. And I know what everybody's thinking about me. It's like, no, you never did, dude. And if they really got to know you, they probably would like you. But, I say stuff on my social media that's authentic, true to me. And I'm not trying to cause controversy with all this stuff going on in the world today. I'm just trying to reach my fellow, because I want people to play with in this life of grown up shit where we got money and we got some irons in the fire, and we've been blessed. We got kids that they want to see us set a bar.
Yeah. And I think it's all about, you've hit on so many good points, dude. No wonder we get along real well. I mean, life is all about, a successful life, I should say, is all about who you surround yourself with. And I had to learn that through my active addiction. When I hung out with all the people that partied, that's what I did. And my life started going down the tubes just like there was. And I had a mentor say to me once, he said, your income, and he was very money motivated. So I don't want to put that out there as the only reason or the only thing that defines success. Because success to me is the fact that you even survived. Success to me is somebody having a successful relationship or marriage. Success to me is having kids that look up to you. It's not always about what you have in the bank. But this mentor of mine used to tell me, he'd say, your income's on average of your 5 closest friends. And what he was trying to illustrate to me is who you hang out with matters, right? And I'm not telling people who are listening to the show to go ditch all your friends and not, have those connections. But it is something you mentioned, it's a big deal to hang out with like-minded people, and to help change the world. How do you feel, fast forward to right now in this moment, this is the last question I have for you. How do you feel about your addiction, your story, recovering, what you've been through? What do you feel about it now? Like, what are the feelings around that?
So for once, I feel like I've almost expunged or diminished that addicted person to the point where I'm conscious, I'm present in the moment, and I know what's good for me. If I'm on my phone too much, I can set it down and go out and get in my chair and move my body, or go to a meeting, be around some people. I mean, an AA meeting is predictable. You ain't going to get a bunch of bad behavior in there. I like the rooms because I'm not a big AA pumping pound over here. I don't do that in my life, but like I go because I could be around men and women that at least start with the basis of they're trying to get better, and they're not, the masks are kind of coming down a little bit. But I don't feel like an addict anymore in my life and how I act. Like maybe inside I catch myself in loops and stuff, and I have the ability to choose to focus on compassion. I went out this morning and did some stuff with the homeless people here in the community, and had some conversations and provided some hot meal. And it was like, we're all in this together. We're all sick or we're all healthy. Like we're all connected. Right. So with the weakest link, like I'm just kind of filling my days up with balance. And I've never was like that, like isolation and crazy night at the clubs, like, just like polar opposites. Like I'm spending time in my days and I might not have tomorrow. I act like that. So this podcast, this podcast makes me happy because I have been waiting. I want to tell the world. I'm not just saying a bunch of stuff. I'm focused more on my future and writing my story in the future. Then I don't want to talk about my past, even though it's really cool. But it's not, I don't have to stop here just because I accomplished a bunch of stuff. I did all this so that I could do this stuff that's coming. I have a foundation now. I never had a foundation underneath me.
Yeah. And isn't it crazy in life that, like I said earlier, some of the things that we've been through, and people are listening, if you've been through some challenges, the mental shift that can happen for you is again, not why did this happen to me? Why am I going through this? Just like you can have that thought, you can have a thought of, I'm going to turn the story into power and help other people. And I love that about you, Tanner, other helping the homeless people, sharing your story with people, get it out there, get it out there because people need to hear what someone in your shoes has done I would say at this point, you have a successful life, right? And what I'm defining that by is what's going on inside of here.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that you don't have to think like an addict anymore. You don't have to operate that way. You don't have to live on a substance. I can relate to all of that stuff. And you've been able to do that almost exclusively because you had this major incident happen, you know, really shifted things for you on the spot. You know, I'm proud of you, man. I'm grateful you came on the show, and I look forward to connecting with you a little bit more. And, you know, as we wrap up here, guys, I will drop Tanner's social media info in some of the reels and the shorts and the things that are going to be created, so you guys can check him out a little bit more and hear more about his story. We'll get a video on here as well of him skiing and kind of show you what that looks like. Get some inspiration from those things. If you're struggling, again, you know, reach out even to us on any of our social media platforms. Our main channel is our YouTube channel, which is Let's Do More Podcast, and you'll see a ton of great content on there. We create more of it every day, you know, as well as we're on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, you know, even, and all of the major podcast, you know, channels. So get on, download the show. Please help share this and help get this message that Tanner has out to more people. That's the whole intention of this show, is to really be able to help as many people as we possibly can through the stories of those that we have on here. So again, Tanner, thank you so much, man, for being here. I really appreciate it. And you know, thanks for being vulnerable and showing people they don't have to be scared about their story and what happened. You shared a lot of vulnerable things, a lot of vulnerable emotions. And I think that shows a giant sign of strength, bro. So thank you so much. We appreciate it. Okay. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
Well, that's it for today's episode of Let's Do More. I hope you found inspiration, hope, and some powerful takeaways to help you on your own journey of growth and resilience. Remember, no matter what you're facing, you have the strength to overcome it and the power to create positive change in your life and community. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, download, and review the podcast. It really helps us reach more people who need to hear these stories. And don't forget to follow us on social media and stay connected and be part of the Let's Do More community. You can find us on Facebook at Let's Do More Podcast, Instagram and TikTok at Let's Do More.life, X at Let's Do More Life, and our primary channel is on YouTube at Let's Do More. We'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts, share your stories, or let us know what topics you'd like to hear about next. Thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, remember, let's keep pushing forward, inspiring each other, and doing more for ourselves and the world around us. Take care, and I'll see you on the next show.